Hello, everybody, and welcome to TableTakes here on Gen Con TV. I am Bonsai. Right here is Derek. Let's see if I pointed it right. Christian and Emma. Oh, wait, no, opposite. Dang it. So close.
So close.
So close. How are you guys doing this April 17th? Anything new going on in your house? Because we're all on lockdown still.
It's dirtier than it was yesterday in here. I've not cleaned.
We're having food discussions, lots of discussion about food.
Oh, yes. All the
is that in
food.
your home or is that us pre-chat? Do
Yes.
we want to reveal to the world the culinary horrors we are contemplating during our times?
Yes.
So I have this grand unified theory of cooking. Okay. This is very detailed, takes a lot of time to get into.
Okay.
But how much time will it take to pick apart?
My gosh,
So
days, weeks, months, years,
lifetimes. Pretty much every discussion about the grand unified theory of some sort of cultural thing boils down to, do you believe that there is some kind of Platonic ideal of this thing that is reflected out in practice? Or are you attempting to describe how people behave? Because the grand unified theory is like, yeah, of course, like soup is a thing and hot dogs are sandwiches. And really, what is a burrito but a thin sandwich smushed in a nut? And you're like, yeah, that's all cute and all. But if someone was like, hey, give me a sandwich and you handed them a burrito, most people would be like,
well, I mean, it's not for a consumption perspective. It's from a culinary perspective. It creates more space where you can do crazy things like put ranch dressing on pasta.
No, I think all it does is it creates online internet engagement.
Yes.
So what is this grand unified theory? I am so confused.
I think what they're saying is that everybody might have their own opinions about things.
That's not what she was saying. She said she had an opinion about it, and I want to know what it is.
Oh, you mean she wants to review?
I would like to hear what that opinion is on food.
Yeah, you want to hear what that opinion is?
There. Everything is connected. I mean, that's the general theory. Everything is connected to everything else. We're all united.
That's your big food manifesto?
Well, hold on. Technically, I do want to point out that
it's all edible, so yeah.
The statement that everything is connected is technically, whether or not she says anything else, is technically a fulfillment of a grand unified theory.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the goal. Yeah.
But just by saying it, okay, yeah, that's fine.
I think we laughingly nominated Emma to discuss this as a topic at some point.
Yes.
Yes.
Perhaps we can have a pro and con debate of soups as sandwiches.
Or we could meld it topically into a grand unified theory of board games.
So you could try that, but I would actually
everything is Yahtzee.
I'm going to suggest a different approach.
Yeah.
You ready for this?
What?
The whole what is a sandwich debate? I don't know if anybody has seen that's one example of the use of the D&D alignment grid in a way to explain something very quickly.
Yeah.
You could jokingly use that as a topic, a gateway into the topic of the ways in which like gaming elements like the D&D alignment chart have been used completely outside of gaming with almost no context needed to understand.
Yes. Look, I would go into my grand unified theory of cooking, but this is not on topic, and I care very deeply about sharing the news we have. So I'm holding it in for now. I am going to resist the urge so we can talk about what we're here to talk about.
Yes.
Very hard for me.
All the news. Yeah. So it seems that we're all very opinionated about things. I wonder who else is very opinionated about things in the world today.
As it turns out, every reviewer ever, it's their whole job being opinionated about things.
Is it?
Having a certain expertise on that subject. A noted reviewer, Tom Felber, has just retired and doesn't like the way reviewers are done anymore. It's apparently they've grown past him. So you know who this guy is?
No.
Why don't you tell us?
Yeah.
He is the former head of the
Spieliaris.
Spieliaris, yeah.
Yeah. And he has ended his game reviewing blog on his website. And his final review was just like completely like game publishers, game reviewers, just throwing everybody under the bus. Has a couple of good quotes on there. He's like, that's why I don't think much of bloggers and influencers who judge games based on a first impression, or who only try games with 2 players that are actually made for 4 or 5. He's really taking it to reviewers for what he believes is their due diligence as reviewers, which I'm glad he gets to make the rules. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Right?
I wish I got to make the rules.
All the
And
rules.
All the rules.
I think like, so for a little bit more background about Tom Felber is that he classically used to like get big groups of people, different age range and different like wherever they come from, put them in separate groups and like basically really go at it with this like, I guess, scientific approach of like having it like try to be as neutral as possible and then interviewing each of those people in their separate groups about what they thought of the game so he can give a pure review. In his opinion, the way like he rants, at least I have a big thing about it, is that a lot of people nowadays who review these bloggers and influencers and people who just have reviews in general have a bias because, you know, it's like, for example, Derek will probably like things that are very grimdark. Christian would like things that are very chaotic and crazy and fun. And Emma, anything with cats is probably going to be something that Emma would like.
I feel
seen.
that I feel that Bonsai's explanation of that perhaps reveals her own biases towards things, as only one of the 3 of us were described as liking things that were fun.
There.
I think reviewers
Derek, is that wrong? Okay, is she wrong, Derek? Is she wrong?
I mean, that's beside the point. I just feel like she's expressing her own bias. You are not described as the fun one.
Anybody who says they put out unbiased reviews is a liar.
Yeah.
Or just fooling themselves, which is usually the case.
But yeah, so basically it's just like you follow these reviewers because you see them as people who have similar interests and tastes like yourself.
Exactly.
You know, and that's like they don't need to like everything and try to give the truest neutral opinion because there's like that's inhumanly possible unless you're a robot.
Well, I think just even if you were a robot, like an important thing to remember with almost any entertainment is that there's not like an objective thing you can measure of fun quality. Like it's not temperature. The fun quality of this game was determined to be 5 parts per million. Like it's not going to happen.
Yes.
Like I think that there are games that you can objectively say are bad or are presented bad. Mm-hmm. And I think there are ones that you can say are good, but beyond kind of some very general statements about the quality of production and presentation and stuff like that, it's really hard to say that this game is objectively better than another game because A, they're games and they're to people's taste, but B, so much of the game is what you get out of it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, product reviews of any kind, whether they're for games or for movies, for any type of art, for any kind of product that you see, all of them are just useless. They're a form of entertainment themselves and nothing more.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say useless. I mean, I definitely
we get use out of them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they're a form of entertainment, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. I mean, you can get good information from it. I learned so much about what it's like to be president by watching The West Wing.
There.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't quite go that far because I think that the reviews that I find to be helpful, like any review that's like, hey, this was a 9 out of 10, you really find useful. Like I think if they really want to boil things down to a score, I think that suggests an approach to the review that's not going to be particularly helpful to me. Mm-hmm. But what I do really find useful are reviews of things like Wirecutter, or for non-games, or Shut Up and Sit Down for games, where they tend to take an approach of like, hey, here was my experience with the game, and here's why. And usually, even if I don't share their tastes, them articulating why they felt that way will help me figure out what I expect my reaction to that game to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
good articulation is I mean, that's the art form.
Yeah. The thing that really gets to me and just gets my hackles up is just that these reviewers, they're doing this for the most part out of their love of the game. They don't get a lot. People say, oh, they get a free board game. So it's like, okay, sometimes maybe, but they put so much time in it. They don't get paid most of the time. They put so much time and effort of their own stuff. They're being vulnerable. They're putting their opinions out there, and people are attacking them, and it is valuable. Sure, you played the game once, you say that, you're clear about that, and say like, yeah, I've played this once or twice. Like, I'm not a reviewer, but I'll say it's like, oh, I just played this game, I really loved it. And through the conglomeration of all those things, like having all of these voices and opinions, if you're trying to figure out if you like a game or not, don't watch one review for a person who played it one time and then get mad because they were truthful about that. Look at a few different things, have your favorite reviewers who tend to share your opinions, and just the fact that there's a richness to this and people are coming at it from different angles, I think is what gives the best picture of whether you will like a game or not.
I think that reviewers should be paid.
Oh,
if they've got the readers, like, they absolutely should be paid, like any other entertainer, because I value their opinion.
Yeah, they have to get paid somehow, whether that's their audience paying them, or whether that's publishers paying them, or advertisers, or something. And there are trade-offs from all the different approaches.
But then people get even more mad that they're getting paid for this stuff.
Well, because once money gets into it, I think gamers or I wouldn't say gamers, I think any passionate hobbyist of something, the community for that often has a kind of a weird problem, where anytime there's any kind of level of money that enters into things, people assume that it gets tainted, and that can frequently happen. But it's not. I mean, it doesn't alleviate the fact that people still need to make a living for their time. And for us to get the amount of content we tend to want out of reviewers, they have to make money somehow. But to bring this back to the retirement for the gentleman who runs a lot of reviewing or jury for the Spiel des Jahres, the point that I kind of feel like he's missing is that not all board game reviews, I hate to say are equal, but they're not all for the same purpose, and they don't all need the same level of rigor. So for the Spiel des Jahres, the fact that he would have these very scientific, very reserved, labored, kind of stretched out reviews, that's fantastic. It's great to hear a lot of this for something that's as prestigious as that, so that we know the trials that a game has to get through to get that seal. But that doesn't mean that reviews or impressions of a first-time playthrough for some games are not valid. I kind of feel like, this is one of those cases of, if we just called reviews after one playthrough impressions instead, would he have said any of the same kind of thing? Yeah. And if so, then maybe he just needs to kind of loosen up his definition of reviews a little bit to match kind of what people are actually doing.
Well,
go ahead, Bonsai.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, to give benefit of the doubt, maybe it's just that, this is something that obviously he's very passionate about.
Yeah.
He puts a lot of time and effort into it. And then maybe he's just still I have this, it's like, watching the young ones take over, and he's just like, I don't know, and he's terrified, he's scared, and some of this, I don't know, it's coming.
So
I feel
he quit and slammed the door. That's what he did. That's all he did. I'm out of here. Everybody else sucks. They're not scientists like me.
I would say that, except for this direct quote from the article: a certain intelligence is often required for games. This is just if y'all know me at all, this is so entirely antithesis to my whole entire game design philosophy. It's yes, there are games this is coming from a very Eurogame heavy game perspective. There's a lot of games that require absolutely no intelligence that people love, that people around the world are playing and having fun with. A lot of the games that people are sharing socially and are playing online, they're games where you can tune out and kind of just have fun with your friends without having to think too hard. And that's an entire category of games that's kind of thrown under the bus with this.
Yeah. No, I think that we will all like kind of agree. But yes, it is kind of like a very, very burning slamming of the door is essentially what we summed it up. Like, ooh, ow. Hit
Ooh.
some
It'll be interesting to see
toes.
if he
Spicy.
follows up or clarifies any of these statements, after the reactions he's gotten.
Yep. We'll see. Maybe he'll stick to his guns. We'll see. Never know. But
If he
yeah.
sticks to his guns, he'll never write another review again.
Well, but
he's already retired. So that's not
Retired. So
That's sticking to your guns. Hey, just
Yeah.
be quiet and go die somewhere.
oh god.
Maybe
But
not
yeah.
that, but
But I mean, but I think in other related, we go from the drama to like something that maybe is still like we're still dealing with stuff in our lives right now that is going on because of the pandemic that is still currently happening right now that as we speak. But yeah, Emma, you have some news that may some Magic users might be affected during this. Yes.
So it sounds like some of the Ikoria Commander decks have been delayed. These are the physical decks that are being printed. This, I would say, it doesn't come really as a surprise. It's kind of just seeing a little bit behind the veil of how games are printed and how games in paper are produced. It's something that's very rarely, when a set is very, very popular, we might see something running out after months and months. Like when I used to work at Mox, we'd sell out of Magic sometimes, be like, oh, and that's when you realize like, oh, right, these are paper things that have to be printed and shipped. But Magic they just make so much of it that usually you're not aware of this whole thing. You're like, oh, it just shows up and there's an infinite amount of it. But this is just showing you like, it's interesting to see, right? Because they had printed a certain amount of product that is going to be the product that's coming out. But the second print run, usually they'd be staggering it out, printing it over time. And now they can't do that. So once these are released, because they're not actually available yet. So once they are released.
I think the reason why we're seeing this happen now too, as opposed to earlier, I suspect, is that from what I understand, Magic prints a lot of their stuff in the US for Magic, not in China. So, we may have seen a kind of a production impact for a lot of other games earlier. I know I saw lots of Kickstarters that were sending out notices that they were delayed by, a month or two or more, especially when it was first kind of starting in China and everyone wasn't really sure how big it was going to be. There were a lot of kind of hedged bets on shipping. But it seems like, maybe it's catching up to Magic now, partly just because Magic was set up in the US and our response has finally kind of rolled out across the US.
Yeah. And I mean, this is, there's a lot of stuff that's happening, a lot of stuff we're dealing with right now in the moment. But this is kind of the first we're seeing of the ripple effects. And we talked about this with conventions and different things, where a lot of people are hoping it's like, hey, after a few weeks, things will completely just go right back to normal. And, there's going to be effects that go on throughout the course of the year and even beyond. And this is kind of just a window into that.
No, it's interesting to see how that is worked now, but then maybe later on, like when it does get released, that means like at least for people in the US, once the companies that are open here in the US are back into stock and everything, it'll start coming out more quickly, especially for the user base and buyer base in there. But I mean, for now, do they have any other way to access these cards?
Absolutely. So very exciting news that Ikoria has been released, has been released digitally, I should say. It is now available on Magic the Gathering Arena. You can play it right now. The cards are flooding the platform. We're having all of our typical sealed options. There's some really cool stuff that's actually going on right now. So typically when a set is released, it's really crazy how the digitization of everything right now is playing out, because as mentioned, they'll have the digital release and a week later they'll have the physical release, but they're not doing that now. The physical cards aren't even coming out for a few more weeks. So this is the only way people are going to be able to play. Usually you'll just start off with a sealed and then people will be playing constructed, but they've gone straight to draft. So you can actually draft this set now today. I was drafting it yesterday is when it first released to the public. And they're piling things on. They've introduced a human draft. So this is something people have been excited about. Magic Online has had it for years, but for Arena, it's been bot drafts. So the way that you've drafted, you've had as much time as you want. You just show a pack. You're drafting against AI, basically, who are just functionally removing some of the cards from the pool. For me, I've enjoyed it. I have no problem drafting against robots, Halar robot overlords. But a lot of people who want a more real life experience, I guess, have wanted this in-person draft. Technically, it can be a little bit challenging because you have to have 8 people there and they need to all start at the same time and you need to time things so it doesn't go on forever. But it's in there. I played it. I drafted a couple times yesterday with the human pods. And you're not playing it against the people that you draft against. You're still just playing against everybody in all of Arena. But it works pretty well. It's pretty smooth.
That's weird. Like I hadn't realized that the draft wasn't a draft per se, that it was a bot thing. That's interesting. And like I do feel though like that kind of changes the core experience of a draft. I almost kind of wish they had a different term for it, because as a very casual Magic player who kind of understood the mechanics but didn't keep up with the meta cards at all. One of the reasons that I really liked the draft format was because it was such a limited environment and you had some information about what you could expect and what was going around the table. And, like you would maybe know if there was that big bomb card somewhere, because, you saw it in a pack or you didn't take it, or your pack had 2 great cards or some of that stuff. And I really liked that awareness of what was available, because it would help inform you. Like if I'm seeing a lot of removal cards or if I'm then to plan around that. So not having that in an online format seems interesting. I wouldn't say it's necessarily bad. It just is a fundamental change. And I maybe it's different for someone like you who's kind of really into it, but for me it feels like it would kind of change things enough that I almost wish there was a different term for that format.
I think some of the complaints about the fact that it was the AI doing it is just the algorithms, right? They're like, oh, you could draft certain types of decks because the AIs just wouldn't go for certain cards. It's, for me, it was nice because there's a lot less pressure on the AI draft. Like it's not timed, so you can just sit there. You can get your partner or post a card online or like look up and do some research. It's a better learning space, I feel like, because you can kind of just sit with them and look at them, even just reading all the cards, especially now a new set just came out, trying to figure out all of these new abilities, like can be pretty tough.
Sounds like it's a great way to learn how quote unquote normal draft works.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like think about going to a physical in paper draft for the first time. I'm trying to think back to my first time just sitting there like, oh gosh, okay, people are going to hand stuff. Like, which way do I pass things? There's a lot of pressure on that. And one of the nice things about drafting on Arena has been, hey, I can do this in a low pressure environment. And now when I go to do it at my local game store someday in the future, I'll feel more comfortable doing it because I've had so many times to practice. But yeah, let's just touch really briefly on the cards themselves. I think what's especially interesting right now with this draft format being released at the same time as the new set is this set, Ikoria, is intense. I've been playing Magic consistently, like played it back in the day, but playing it consistently for 4 or 5 years now. And of the sets I've done, this one is above and beyond the most complex. I didn't do some of the sets where it was a bunch of the older cards or older format, like the non-standard stuff. But of the standard viable sets I've done, this one is just mind melting. The decision space of all the choices that you have to make for this big new mechanic, mutate. You have a card, it's a creature, and you can mutate it. So you can either just put it on the battlefield for 1 cost as the creature, or you can put it on top of another creature for another cost, or you can put it under a creature for a different cost, and it will have a different power and toughness depending on how you play it. And then it will have a mutate effect, and sometimes there's double mutate effects. So there's like once a creature mutates, there's a trigger that goes off. So there's all this like stuff going on all the time. And I think it does capture some of that feeling of, because it's all kaiju based, right? It's literal cards we had talked about recently. It's Godzilla and Mothra and different things. So yeah, it's like you can have this 1/1 creature on the battlefield and then just slam a couple things on top of it, and all of a sudden it's an 8/8 flying trample creature that gives everything else +2/+1 when it attacks or when it enters the battlefield. So there's some just huge swings.
That sounds exactly like what a lot of Magic fans would like.
Yeah.
Chat has demanded that we acknowledge their existence and the raid that just came in.
Oh, hello, chat.
It was a big old raid.
Yeah, it was. We were just like, hey, guys.
Yep. So Lozapalooza has come and joined us. So thank you everybody who came in from that for joining us, and hopefully we have.
Oh my gosh!
We have placated them.
You're just listening to a bona fide Magic expert talking, like giving us some knowledge. Thank you, Emma. That was awesome.
Thank you. Yes.
I don't know if I would say that I'm an expert, but I have. I just got my arena stats, and I've played more games than 90% of people on arena, which feels kind of crazy to me.
Yeah,
but
that
I feel like
Plus, you're our Magic expert, as we say often.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no. I feel like they should just give you a special badge now too, to be like, I'm top percentage, like 90 percentile kind of thing.
They don't have badges or titles yet, but yeah, that would be cool.
That'd be something for.
You definitely played more Magic than 90% of the TableTakes hosts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fair. So this, for the cards, I think it's always cool to see them doing new stuff. And every set that comes out, obviously there's new things. I felt a little bit with this set, again, as someone who's played just thousands and thousands of games, I've felt unmoored. Usually when a new set comes out, I do stuff like, whoa, there's all this stuff going on. But after a couple of things, I'm like, okay, I kind of see what's happening here. Mm-hmm. After a few sealed and drafts of this, I'm like, I still have like just the whole meta. Like we talk about the meta in Magic and like how the cards interact together just seems so different than how it was before. So as always, I encourage people to go in there and check it out. There's a lot of stuff that you can do for free, but it's definitely not super new player friendly. So if you're going into Magic for the first time, or you've been away for a long time and you're coming back to it, there's definitely going to be a learning curve there.
See, I feel like you've actually just convinced me to try it, even though I'm not very good at it, because there's so many veteran players who are like, what the does this card do? And
yeah.
Now is the time to jump in.
Yeah.
Go in and do more chaos to the
level
game.
out the playing field by their experience with the new stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it also just occurs to me that it's kind of an interesting thing to think about from a meta standpoint, because I think we touched on this a little bit about like with some of the previous sets we talked about. Like I think this came up with the Fairy Tale set Eldraine, Throne of Eldraine.
Yeah.
Where like the theme wasn't really it wasn't really big for me. Like it wasn't a set that was drawing me in, but it was definitely drawing you and I think Bonsai in.
Yeah.
And like it occurs to me too that you can also do that with mechanics, where if you release a set that is very basic, straightforward, simple, like great for introductions, that's not going to excite me to get in. But a set that's like weird and complex and strange and maybe not easy to grasp or necessarily balanced or I don't know, great, but like that sounds more weird and fun to mess with for me. So it makes me look like, and I think that Magic's schedule of having these sets that kind of come every so often gives them the ability to do that, where you can, one set can be one thing, another set can be a different thing. So you have the ability to kind of play to the different groups that play Magic in different ways. Yeah,
and that's a huge part of their release philosophy. So you have sets that are the core sets, generally a little easier to get into, better for newer players. You have kind of weird thematic new stuff like Throne of Eldraine that's kind of not crazy complex, but kind of fun for people who really like thematic stuff. And you have Theros Beyond Death, which is just an homage to the years long players, because it goes back to a known plane and brings back a lot of stuff. And then you have something like this that just like goes to crazy town and no one has any idea what's going on and really shakes things up. So they consistently are trying new things and doing new things and experimenting, which I think is
so
cool.
we have a couple questions in chat, I think, that tie into this a little bit.
Yeah.
Two folks in chat have asked, one of them asked what we recommend to learn Magic, which I think we've talked about a little bit before, which kind of boils down to go play Arena for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, that's the easiest way to get an introduction.
It's true, yeah.
Especially now if you can't go to a store.
Yeah.
I think go to a good store or play Arena are the best ways to get introduced to Magic. But, somebody else was also asking, any tips for newbies. So, maybe even in light of this new set coming out, like if someone's new to Magic, it sounds like you wouldn't necessarily recommend they jump straight into Ikoria.
No.
So if Ikoria is the big new thing on Arena, what would you recommend that somebody does in Arena if they're relatively new to Magic instead of playing Ikoria?
Well, the great thing about Arena is they have a lot of built-in tools. They do a great job of guiding the new player experience. So you'll go in there and they'll be like, hey, here's a bunch of monocolor decks. You can just play these against a robot. So they have Sparky, who's their little AI character. And you can just go in there and play 10, 20, 100 games against Sparky with pretty basic decks. Like usually they start off, they'll give you some monocolor decks for free. I think eventually they'll give you some dual color decks. You can see a lot of what the different cards are doing. And then just as you're playing those decks, you get coins. So you can eventually dip your toes into maybe a limited, maybe a sealed, maybe a draft. And then they just have a bunch of different, one thing they started doing recently is workshops. It can be a little difficult to go into the UI and see exactly, it's like, okay, what's a workshop and what's a thing? But they have some events. They'll just give you free coins for playing, and they make pre-built decks. So a huge thing about Arena is all the pre-built decks and the different ways you can do it, and then they'll switch those up. So they'll have a workshop. They had one recently with a bunch of graveyard decks. So you go in there, you just click on the deck, you're playing against someone else who played against one of those decks. You don't have to do the deck construction. So Arena really does make it very easy for you to dip your toe in as much or as little as you like. I definitely recommend eventually trying out some of those other things as well. It can definitely be intimidating. So if you go to a draft or sealed for your first time, you're probably gonna get your butt kicked. So just be aware of kind of there's a very high skill cap in there if you go into certain parts. It's like going to the deep end of the swimming pool. Right? It's like you're paddling around. You're like, I'm just going to jump into the pool over there. It can definitely be intimidating, but there's enough guidance in there that you can find a way to make yourself feel comfortable. One of my friends actually just got into Arena and we played Magic with her for the first time with some battle decks from Mox Boarding House recently. And now she's playing in Arena and having a great time. So
that's it. I'm installing it right now.
Oh, there you go. Get Arena.
Yes. Got one.
That's what you do. For beginners, get Arena.
You've talked to me. Your excitement is my excitement now, Emma.
Ow.
Oh,
my cat is just biting me in her excitement. Apparently the excitement is infectious.
All the excitement.
I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but it does look like somebody asked about commander decks and what they are. This is a format where you have a deck of 100 cards. Each card is different. You have one of those cards is a commander who has different colors associated with it. So if you have a black-white commander, then you can only put black and white cards in your deck and usually build them around a theme. This is something that's mostly played kitchen table. And it's a great format because it's a multiplayer format. So you can have 3 or 4 or 5 people playing at the same time. And it's a great way to kind of play with your friends without having to worry about rotating formats.
All right.
Alrighty.
Well, thank you for all of that information. And
Absolutely.
Speaking of dipping your toes back into things,
So
guys,
we've almost gotten to our 4th story.
Fourth star, yeah. Unearthed Arcana has more options on Psionics. So if you guys ever really wanted to play Psionics, they're not going to use the old psi point system that they used to have, and it is still going to be a subclass, but it still has a lot of cool stuff. So if you're into like Psionics and I really want to go ahead and test it out, Christian.
I have always loved the idea of Psionics, and I have never loved the mechanics. So I'm looking forward to trying these out. Honestly, the Soul Knife is a longtime favorite class of mine.
Yeah, so these still use it, like, so what they're doing is that it's just kind of like an added upgrade or subclass to whatever character you have. So for example, they have a Psionic, which is kind of, I would say, like, some people say Jedi, I say very
Psychic
monk.
Warrior 2.0.
Yeah, Psychic Warrior 2.0. So you can use your Psionics to, like, basically use a talents die to improve your attack, protect themselves, and just, like, basically boost people. There's also Soul Knife, which is like a rogue type Psionic.
My favorite.
Yeah, and so basically you can, like,
love
bend
Psylocke
the
too.
blade. You just psychic the
Yes.
knife.
Yeah,
Homie missile.
that makes sense.
Psionic Soul is a sorcerer subclass, which uses basically, you can just, like, oh yeah, totally, I had this spell prepared. Boom, boom. I don't need to really
Hope you
think
like
about
mind
it.
affecting attacks, because that's all I have.
Hopefully they
Yeah,
have brains.
Brains, all the brains. But yes, this does add 3 spells to the like 3 psionic spell themes, 5 feats, that also 4 psionic powers to any character. The difference with this subclass is that usually you roll a d20 to see if you confirm, and, like, for either d20 for hitting, or you can roll your hit die to see how much damage you do. For this, your psionics adds to either your accuracy or the amount of damage you do. So if you roll a high number, like your max, basically, if you have a d6, you roll a 6, your next attack will be like a d4. So it increases your dice that you use. If you get a 1 on that particular one, how it's explained is that you use a certain amount of psychic energy. And if you use your max during that round, your dice pool just, like, essentially you're exhausting yourself. You go down a dice pool. And then if you just, like, don't use it that much, you go up 1. And that's just how they're explaining how psionics works in this new Unearthed Arcana. So if you guys want to go ahead and check it out, I would say go ahead, peruse this.
It definitely seems like it's a more involved system than the last one they had, which was it's another describer for magic, basically, but you're still just casting spells. This definitely seems like it was designed by somebody who felt like they weren't using all of their dice sizes enough, and wanted an excuse to, like, well, now it's time to use a D4. Well, now I'm going to go back to a D6. Oh, now it's a D8.
I mean, would you write? Yeah. Go ahead, Emma. Sorry.
Yeah, I feel that pain. Some of my dice are very underutilized, and it's very sad to me.
I mean, do you want to go back to psi points then, Derek? Is that what you?
I have theories. I have ideas.
All right, all right.
Everybody does. That's why every 5 years or so they try and reinvent psionics for D&D to great acclaim.
Derek's like, just call me. I got ideas. Call me.
I got
ideas. I'll give you ideas.
I'm not saying they're great ideas, but
I say that stuff all the time, Derek, and guess what? They never call.
Damn it! I thought this was going to work out this time.
You got to do a bigger wink, like, hey.
The whole stream is a ruse. It was all to get Derek onto the D&D development team.
Yeah, it's a master plan.
Yeah,
that's my long con here.
And then he gives his friend Christian a job.
Oh.
So what we'd like people to do, viewers and chat should go check out the rules. I'm really curious what people think if they've had a chance to play them. So if anybody has deployed that in their home game, or if they've made a character or 2 or something like that, let us know your thoughts. I am actually really curious as to how it'll be received, because the last one, which was basically just here are some new spells, didn't seem like it really kind of captured people's imaginations or captured the flavor they wanted. So I have a feeling that this will be a lot more successful for a lot of people.
Yeah. So yeah, we need your opinions and your reviews. Now that we got through some, like, good news, we're gonna have to unfortunately go on this emotional roller coaster and give you some bad news.
All right.
Bad
news.
I don't want anybody to freak out. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Because I know this is a Gen Con show and we talk about Gen Con stuff a lot, and San Diego Comic-Con 2020 has been canceled due to coronavirus concerns. And why is that important? Well, it's like the biggest convention in the world. So, and it happens right around the same time as ours, usually just a little before. So that makes my chest tighten a little bit. I mean, it could be all the fatty foods, but that's a big one. So I mean, everything, the booths can be rolled over to next year, which hopefully screws people who had to buy booths to begin with a little bit less than they were being screwed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're screwed. That's just how that goes. And
like lots and lots of conventions have been canceled so far, and you know, I think everybody was crossing their fingers for a quick resolution to quarantine and ban on public gatherings.
Yeah.
But the latest news out of California seems to be a lot less optimistic than we were originally hoping for.
Well, I mean, we're trying out different things. We're doing our ZoeCon next weekend, it turns out, online. So check that out if you get a chance. And but yeah, this is just, there's nothing good out of this, basically. You know, it's the biggest convention. It's canceled. It doesn't give me a lot of hope, but I still have hope.
Hope.
Lots of hope. I feel I want to get to at least one convention this year.
Yeah, keep the hope.
All the hope.
Keep the hope alive.
This is one of the ones I look forward to because it's well, like 10 minutes from my mom's house.
Oh, well, yeah, that's all. We just gotta keep our hope.
Yeah. So hey, there's that. I tried to be quick about it, rip the Band-Aid off.
Yep.
I hope everyone's okay. I hope you were sitting down, but that is bad news for us, and I apologize.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since we're on the theme of maybe sparking of hope in the galaxy and universe, Derek, do you have any hope for us?
Yeah, I hear that I'm the one that people go to when they're looking for some sort of spark of hope. That's definitely the brand we've established.
Well, somebody's got to stamp it out, Derek. Might as well be you.
Well, so I think the connection here, I think, is more that without conventions, a lot of announcements and previews are very different than they used to be. So Games Workshop is a good example where, you know, they had been doing lots of previews at shows, a lot of announcements at shows, but they have done a pretty big adaptation to not having conventions. They have finally kind of relaunched a Twitter account. They've been doing a lot of streaming on Twitch. They have reopened their Twitch archives and stuff like that. And tomorrow they're doing their third big online preview where they're announcing their products online first as opposed to doing it at a convention. We covered some of the previous announcements. Their online preview one, you know, had a preview of like an animated series, had some Lumineth Elven kind of stuff, Aomir for Lord of the Rings, Fabius Bile for 40K, stuff like that, Lionel Johnson. Online preview 2 had a bunch more Elven stuff, Blood Bowl Treants, a campaign mode for Lord of the Rings, which is really interesting. So it's unclear what they're going to be announcing tomorrow. They don't seem to have been dropping a ton of hints or previews yet, but it starts at 9 a.m. Eastern or 6 a.m. Pacific. So by the time I actually wake up, it'll all be out and I can just consume all at once. So that's on their Twitch. They also have a live blog that they'll be using to cover it too. They have a page on the Warhammer community site where they talk about how you can engage with it. But I'm excited to see what it is. And like they're kind of doing the best they can with an interesting spot that they're in, because they have announced that they're not releasing any new products because a lot of these products are hard to get at first or are limited quantities sometimes. And if you don't have stores you can go to buy it, it makes it really hard for the people who want it to actually have a fair shot at getting it.
Yeah.
So they've announced they're not releasing anything, but Games Workshop also has so many game lines and so many kind of weird offshoots that if they were to just postpone all their PR for 6 months, that would kind of wreak havoc on their release schedule or communication plan. I'm sure it will still do so, but I think they're trying to do the best they can with the middle ground of promoting stuff online, even if we all kind of know it's going to be about 4 months, 6 months, maybe before we have a chance to go buy it.
Okay. So
I'm excited.
All the excitement. Keep posted. Look out for tomorrow is basically what we got. So with all of this news going down, Emma, do you have any way that we can figure out what we can do during the COVID-19 and also include gaming and helping your local gaming stores?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about this a little in the past. GAMA is providing a list of publishers with retailer support. This list is continuing to grow. So if you've looked at the list in the past, you can check it out again and see additional publishers that have been added to this list. what's great about what a lot of the publishers specifically are doing is if you buy games directly through the publishers who often have a lot of the games right now in their warehouse, they'll actually give credit to your local game store if you let them know what that local game store is. So publishers are going to be in a really bad spot if local game stores just go away. So they're doing their best to support them. Normally there's this whole chain. The publishers would give the games to the distributors, and the distributors would go to the local game store, and everyone would get paid. Because all that's kind of broken down right now, the game publishers are just helping directly with those local game stores. What's also great about this is, honestly, it's a little tricky to get a hold of a lot of these games through Amazon right now. So a lot of people are turning to Amazon for their games, but the supply chain is kind of broken down right now. So Amazon is a little slower to get the games. So some of these games, I know some people do just go on Amazon. If the game isn't there, they assume that it doesn't exist. But right now, if you don't see the game on Amazon, or if you just want to help out, you can actually go to those publishers' websites and communicate with them directly. And a lot of times you can get the games through there and also help out your local game store at the same time, which also, it's bad for publishers if they go away, and it's bad for us if they go away too. So help them out there if you have the opportunity. It can be really great.
Yep. So keep that in mind. But that is our headlines for today. Right now, it is time for Bundle Boss with
It's me. I'm the Bundle Boss.
You
All
are.
right, this week we got some new stuff on the bundle of holding. The Traveler New Era package is available. If you are not familiar with Traveler, it is how did you put that, Derek? The gentleman's sci-fi game.
Yes, the distinguished gentleman's sci-fi game.
What that means is back in the day, back in the in the dark times, the 80s, I believe they were called. We had not as many games to choose from as we do now. So if you wanted to play a game in space, you were either going to be playing Star Wars by West End Games, or you were going to be playing Traveler. So if you didn't like all of the space magic and stuff, Traveler was your way to go. It was kind of had this space opera meets hard sci-fi thing going on. It's famous for being one of the games that you can die during character creation. So it's got a lot of fans worldwide, and they're offering a great bundle with it. The basic bundle is going to be just a few bucks, $14.95. You get 6 full titles in that, including it's the Traveler New Era bundle, which is their 1993 version of the game, which is still just fine and wonderful. It comes with a 160-page technical source book, a World Tamer's Handbook, and Vampire Fleets, which is another setting source book.
Vampires, you say?
Vampires.
What? Did I mention that out loud? Yeah, somebody likes vampires, and you can do them in space now, which is super cool. So they also have the Mega Traveler bundle.
For giants, right?
Mega.
They're just giant. They're just very large travelers.
That's all they are. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm glad you looked into that, Emma.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're welcome.
I just assumed that Christian knew about Mega Traveler just because it's clearly Mega Damage Traveler.
Right, you would think so, but that's not exactly how it works. What it comes with is the book Mega Traveler, the Rebellion source book, and the Mega Traveler journal. If you get the Referee collection, that's going to come with all the GM stuff you're going to need for it: the Referee Companion, Hard Times, the COACC, Arrival Vengeance, the Astrogator's Guide to Diaspora Sector, and a couple of adventure paths that go along with it too, including Assignment Vigilante and Nightfall. There's your bundles.
Bundles. And then all of these support the folding at home, which is basically all your unused RAM gets used to this mega base to help cure diseases and just better the world in some way. Right now they're allowing people to use their extra computer space to find a cure for the basically scenario cures for COVID-19.
I like that we're up to donating RAM. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
All the RAM. You got to donate the RAM.
It's easier than money.
I have my GBs.
All the GBs. But also, now that we have done with the Kickstarter boss, it's time for the... Bundle boss. Bundle boss is now for it's the Kickstarter
You
queen.
jumped the segue gun.
I did.
Demerit.
I'm fired. Kickstarter queen.
Kickstarter Queen forgives you. Your service has been so wonderful over the years that we will overlook this infraction.
The Queen is merciful. Hail the Queen!
Hail the Queen!
Hail the Queen!
Our first project this week is actually something that Emma's very excited about, and ties into our previous declaration of her as the first Minister of Magic.
Minister of Magic.
With 1 day left, we have Seb McKinnon, Magic the Gathering playmats. Seb McKinnon is absolutely one of my favorite Magic the Gathering artists.
So beautiful.
I love that Seb does things that it doesn't really feel traditional Magic. So I guess it's weird in a way. So you look at all of this amazing art, you say like, that's a Magic card? That looks like it could be up in some like Gothic art museum, and that's what I love about the art and the art for Magic in general, is the fact that you get stuff in there that just really cool art, and it's also different, but it still feels like it fits in the universe. Anyways, just go ahead and click on and check out the Seb McKinnon playmats, because even if you don't love Magic, a lot of it again doesn't look like Magic cards, just this really cool Gothic, creepy, uncomfortable, beautiful art. So there's playmats in there. Not all of them are for Magic cards, but a good number of them are. So if you do like Magic, you can get some of your favorite art. If you don't, they just look freaking cool. So 1 day left, you should check that out.
Yes, 1 day left. Ooh, nice. And then Derek, you have something to stay at home with?
So we have two interesting projects that are kind of a weird mix between like an artifact and a game and an activity almost. These are two what the creator is calling a stay-at-home game. Our Vacation and Cold War Navy. So these are two like game books that are collections of photos and words and snippets. Our Vacation more so than Cold War Navy, but like the expectation is that you actually have to take the book and cut it up and recompose it or draw on it or change it. Although like Cold War Navy in particular, like is a bunch of these photographs with these blank spots, and you're supposed to leave it out and encourage people to just kind of interact with it and draw in it and write notes on it, so that you kind of end up with this shared artifact that your group of friends have created. The Kickstarter has PDFs, so you can kind of see what you're getting into, because it is a little bit of a weirder idea. A little divergent from a lot of the RPGs or games we might normally cover. And the Kickstarter is also kind of set up to allow you to kind of pick whatever tier you want. So it's almost like a pay what you want. And the kind of complicating factor though is that these will all be print on demand from DriveThruRPG. So there's just a component that COVID may impact when DriveThruRPG can actually do the print on demand. And B, it's a thing where you will back the Kickstarter, you will get the code, you can use the code to go order the thing. Or you could just take the files you get from the Kickstarter and print it yourself, or bring it to Kinko's or whatever else. But it's a really neat idea. And the creator, cat, don't play with the mouse or the keyboard. The creator had also done another project we talked about called 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which is basically a journaling game where you kind of make a vampire and then you have these prompts
for this.
Yep, you have these prompts to decide what happened to your vampire at these different stages, and like they only have so many memories. So at certain points, you'll have to decide which of their beloved memories have to be sacrificed so they can move on. So it seems like this creator is really kind of playing around with games as artifact and games as journal, and stories emerging from other kind of sources other than dice and cards and stuff like that.
Yeah, my one caveat about this project would be to read the reward tiers carefully, because I was definitely a little confused looking in that. I haven't gotten print and play things through DriveThruRPG, so I can't speak to what kind of products that is, but for something that it is meant to be such an artifact, like I wonder how exactly that will work with print and play. I would love to...
all the stuff I've gotten from print on demand from DriveThru, the premium stuff has been very, very good.
Okay.
It's great quality.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea, and definitely excited to see more stuff like this.
Great.
Okay, nice.
So that has 5 days left. Wednesday, April 22nd.
Groovy.
And
So the next game to cover also has 6 days left. This is Thursday, April 23rd. This is Cloudspire. And this is a little kind of hard to get a solid grasp on because it's an interesting, it describes it as an asymmetrical MOBA-inspired strategy game that also has a co-op mode and a solo mode. But it basically, you kind of build this hex map out of all these neoprene tiles, and then you use poker chip units that you place all around and kind of move down different tracks to control territory, to battle. And like the art is very stylish. The components seem really high quality. It received a number of awards last year, award nominations. So folks who really like MOBA stuff or who want to kind of simulate that experience on the tabletop, or just really love premium components for a territory kind of control game, should probably check out Cloudspire. And I think like the new factions for this Kickstarter are like kind of like space, or not space, but Sky Pirate Orcs. And who doesn't love Sky Pirate Orcs?
Sky Pirate Orcs. All
that
right.
is 6 days left.
6 days left. So with 6 days left as well for Thursday, April 23rd, I have a combo that not just one game, not just 2 games, but 3 games that are being offered in this Kickstarter. GPS, SEQUOIA, and Goat Mountain. All of these are simple 10-minute board games. You can literally go onto the page and watch the demo. It is under each of these games can be demoed and learned how to play under 3 minutes. Like it's mostly like a points, like try to organize your points kind of game. I really do like the simplified art that each of these have, and each of these are like $15 board games that you can play in case like you're at the end of your game, people still want to hang out and talk, but you don't necessarily want to break out a 2-hour game. You're just like, I want to play for a little bit, or if like somebody has to suddenly leave for a certain amount of time to do something, they can come back.
Just anything, really.
Anything, really.
Any activities. It takes about 10 minutes.
It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Yep. So if that interests you and you want to go ahead and learn these like simple games that you can like in general probably play with a wide range of people and or age groups, go ahead and check it out. So that's GPS, SEQUOIA, and Mountain Goats with 6 days left, April 23rd.
So then with 7 days left, Friday, April 24th, we have Sanctuary, the Keepers Era, which is a very, very pretty, very stylish card game that I think will remind everybody of like a TCG or Magic straight up. And to be honest, I think the most of the Kickstarter is dedicated to how the cards look and the different factions and stuff like that. So it might be a little hard to get a grasp on the actual gameplay, but it actually does seem like it plays somewhat similar to Magic, except that you kind of have these different like tracks. There's lanes, and you'll put out your lands, and then your opponent will attack or defend a specific land, and they're trying to break those before you are able to develop them enough to kind of activate their powers. So if you want a little more a Magic-esque game that has kind of tightly controlled lanes of attack and defense with a lot of nice art, this might be something to check out.
Okay. And how many days left is that?
That is 7 days left, Friday, April 24th.
Oh, nice. And then, shall we storm into the next Kickstarter?
Oh, yes, let's. So with 7 days left, we have Storm the Gate Woodland Warfare. I liked it at first just because of the name, Woodland Warfare. I assumed that it was either going to be like Robin Hood-esque or cute little baby animals fighting each other with spears. And, I went and I looked at the video and I didn't get what I wanted, and yet I was not in any way disappointed by it. This is definitely in a lot of ways a bonsai Kickstarter. There's no getting around it. It's got a beautiful wooden box. All of the pieces are basically weapons to start with, so they can be easily weaponized. Plus, it has a slingshot mechanic that you get to shoot the things at the other people. I've always loved these decks. I've always loved these dexterity-based board games from since I was a kid. Things like Hungry Hungry Hippos or the thing with the cups. I loved all that stuff. This is playing on that a little bit, adding a little bit of a hand-eye coordination skill to your board game experience has always been fun for me. So I latched onto this very quickly.
It seems very cute, like a Crokinole or Catacombs kind of game.
Yeah,
very much so.
I like the contained board for those. I mean, Crokinole is awesome but huge. I have friends who've gotten it, but it definitely is a commitment. And some of those games just have it on a table. You need to have a space you can do them. So having it in its own container is really cool.
But like I said, it is very weaponizable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How many days left on that? 7. All right. And then it is time to get into the thick of this forest, Emma.
Last, but certainly not least. So the Storm of the Gate Woodland Warfare is pretty adorable. I will give it that. But contesting for the cutest Kickstarter board game of the week is going to be Kodama Forest. You probably recognize the name Kodama because there is a whole universe of games set in this Kodama world. Different things. Kodama 3D. There's Kokoro Avenue of the Kodama. There's so many games that are based around these adorable woodland spirits. Just go and click on it. Check out the art for these things. They're little creatures with leaf hats, and they play around with butterflies and flowers and lightning bugs. Just such a fun, friendly sort of a theme and environment to it, with some potentially kind of cutthroat game mechanics in there. So this one is, you'll recognize it's very different. If you've seen original Kodama, you're taking leaf cards and building out a tree. Mechanically, Kodama 3D is similar, but you're building up a tree because it's 3-dimensional. For this one, each player actually has their own grid tile boards, and you're placing tile placement, trying to match up the symbols of the game. So table presence, it looks very different. There's also a cooperative version. The original game looks like it's semi-cooperative because everything you're doing is affecting other players, but you can play it competitively, cooperatively. Lots of cool, very pretty stuff going on here. So if you like the tile placement and you like the Kodama universe, definitely check this out. It has 7 days left, is ending on Friday, April 24th.
Okay. I think, oh no, did you guys realize something?
What?
I think that was the last of the things that we needed to go over today. Oh my goodness. So unfortunately, friends, our Kickstarters are done. And this is the time that we are going to be going ahead and going with TableTakes. But stick around, friends, because right after this, we're going to have a Gen conversation. Right now, they're going to be telling you how to play tabletop RPGs online. We're going to have our very own Derek and Christian there. Derek and Christian. Yes, I think I pointed it right? Yeah, Derek and Christian there, along with Carlos from Roll20 to tell us more about, like, hey, basically, since you can't play games physically with each other, how about we move it to the digital space? And yes, Gen Con itself isn't just our Friday shows. We have a whole plethora of shows to watch. Like our streaming schedule goes. Mondays you can join us all week long. Monday, 6 p.m. board games with the Brothers Murph. They're a bunch of brothers that play board games together. Wednesdays, we got 9 a.m. with Minis with Murph. Instead of board games, these brothers paint minis. And basically, if you want to learn how to paint minis nicer and get the pro opinions, go ahead and join there. Also on Wednesdays at 11 a.m., This Gamer Gets Dicey. Basically, we have a couple of online, we choose a couple of people online to play various different board games and get their review on it. So it's kind of like a mix and match. They choose each game and then go through demoing it.
Doesn't sound very scientific.
Very, it has to be scientific.
And there's your callback to the first story.
Yeah. 4 p.m. we got Fireside with Peter Atkinson and one of his various different guests that they come on. They basically tell you behind the scenes of Dungeons and Dragons. This is basically we're going through, hey, how was Dungeons and Dragons just getting started during 3.5? Let's go hear all the juicy stories. And if you want to hear that, join us at 4 p.m. 6:30, we got Westgate Irregulars. Basically, we got a bunch of writers and we told them and locked them in a room and said, play Dungeons and Dragons, or basically play role-playing game, have fun. Fridays, of course, you got us 2 p.m. table takes right after 3:30, the conversations. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, turn on notifications. Also, all of our VODs and videos will be on YouTube after 24 hours. So, hey, don't forget to like and leave a review if you want. Tell us how awesome we are. That has been, of course, Derek, Christian, Emma. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been TableTakes. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and see you in a couple of minutes.